We're now going to talk about something called symbiosis. Symbiosis has to do with relationships or interactions again. And in symbiosis, that relationship between two or more living things, one organism will always benefit. Sometimes both of them will benefit. And let me go into some more detail. There's three different kinds of symbiosis: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Now, in mutualism, both organisms benefit. Okay? It's a win-win situation. Let's look at a couple of examples here. Here's an example of a mutualistic relationship. This is a zebra, obviously, and this little bird here is called an oxpecker. And this oxpecker will travel around with the zebra, and what they do is they pick off the ticks out of the zebra's skin. And that may sound gross, but for the oxpecker, that's great. That's food. So the oxpecker is benefiting from this relationship because it gets food, and that helps it to survive. How is the zebra benefiting? Well, ticks are not good for animals. They can cause various issues, Lyme disease being one of them, I suppose. But what happens here is that the zebra benefits from this relationship by getting rid of the ticks that are in its skin. Another relationship, this is the classic one from mutualism, is a bee and flowers. Bee is a pollinator, not the only one, but it's a pretty substantial pollinator. Now bees, they benefit from this relationship with the flowers by obtaining nectar. And nectar is, again, food for the bees and for the hive. Now the flower benefits because as the bee is obtaining nectar from the flower, what's that yellow stuff that it gets all over it? All over its legs and all over the hairs of the bee? That's pollen. And as the bee goes from flower to flower, it takes pollen from one flower and deposits it on another flower. And that helps with reproduction. So the bee gets food, the flower gets help with reproduction and creating seeds. So a great example of mutualism. There are other types of relationships. Actually, we won't go into those right now. Now another relationship, the next one that we're going to talk about is commensalism. Again, one organism benefits, but the other organism doesn't benefit. It's not harmed either, but it doesn't benefit. Okay. Let's see. Let's look at this one here. This is a really good one. I like this one. Remora fish and sharks. Now you've probably seen pictures of sharks like this one where you've got these other little fish that kind of tag along. Now sharks don't really care that those fish are there. They don't benefit from those little fish at all. But these fish, the little fish, the remora fish, benefit a lot. They get to hang out with the shark, and the shark will protect it from predators inadvertently, but still, no one's going to mess with those little fish because they're hanging out with the shark. The other way that the remora fish benefits is when the shark does feed, there's going to be a lot of scraps in the water, and those scraps will be eaten by the remora fish. So the remora fish benefits by obtaining food, and it has some protection from the shark as well. Really good example. The other one that's an example, this is one about orchids in trees. Actually, no, I don't want to talk about that one. I want to talk about birds. Birds building nests in trees. So the bird building a nest in the tree is great for them because they have shelter, they have protection. But the tree, it doesn't affect the growth of the tree whatsoever. And that's what makes it a commensalistic relationship. The last type of symbiosis that we're going to talk about is parasitism. And in parasitism, as always, one of the organisms benefit. And in this case, the other one is harmed in some way. So the one I want to talk about with you is a mosquito. Very simple example. The relationship is between the mosquito and us. And the mosquito, of course, benefits in that relationship. They're able to obtain blood, and blood is food, nutrients for that species. We are harmed in a few different ways. Number one, we lose blood. And losing blood is never a good idea, and it is never good for us. The other way in which we are harmed or disadvantaged is that after we're bitten, we scratch our skin, right? It's very irritating. And sometimes we scratch that bite until it bleeds. And of course, whenever you have blood on the outside of your bodies from whatever kind of abrasion, there's always the potential for infection. Now, the last way in which we're harmed is the worst way. Sometimes the mosquitoes are actually carrying diseases. Could be West Nile, could be malaria. In these circumstances, we may acquire a disease. And in both of those circumstances, there's the possibility of somebody dying from those diseases as well. So now in parasitism, just a couple more words. The parasite, okay, so the parasite is the organism that benefits. It actually has the name. It's the parasite. And the host is the one that is being harmed.